Where to start? All right. So the purpose of this is to be as helpful as possible. If we're saying things that seem crazy and weird and you've never even thought of them and you're thinking, what the hell are these people talking about? It's probably a good thing because the fact that you've never even considered a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about has everything to do with the reason why you are still struggling with emetophobia or anything else. Like Lauren said before, anxiety, depression, whatever. So we're not, this isn't about like, we're not teaching you breathing exercises or anything like that. We are teaching you things that get to the root cause of what is going on here and how to overcome this, because you can overcome it, because the other person on this live right here overcame it, and now she's helping other people overcome it. So it absolutely is possible. So I guess the one thing that I will start with is that emetophobia is completely predictable. And what we mean by that is that everybody created it the same way. They're maintaining it the same way. And also they overcome it the same ways. Yeah. Nobody's too complex. Nobody had too traumatic of an event or has had it for too long that they can't get over it. It all comes down to the same things. It all comes down to the fear of losing control. It's not the actual fear of throwing up. It's the fear of just losing control. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is because when you know why something exists and why it's so predictable, you're able to kind of dismantle it and overcome it. It's not this crazy mysterious thing. It's completely predictable. So remember that, it's very important. And so like a lot of people will think that it all happened because, or it all started when they had a traumatic event when they were throwing up or something like that. During that event, the reason that's so common is because during that event, you could have created the phobia right then and there, but it's not the event that created it. It's your unhelpful ways of thinking about things in that moment that created it. So a perfect example is if there are two siblings, if one sibling thinks catastrophically, oh my God, that was the worst thing in the world, that was so disgusting, I felt so out of control, I never want to feel like that again, and then they're worrying about it all day, all night, for days and days and weeks and months, that kid is going to create emetophobia. If the other sibling doesn't think catastrophically and they think, oh yeah, it was kind of gross, that was weird, but I feel better now, on to playing with my toys or whatever, that sibling is not going to have it. So it's that moment right there. That's why people think that it's a particular event that caused it. It's just how you interpreted the event based on your beliefs and your unhelpful ways of thinking, things like that. And also, so it's not genetic. It's not genetic. And so one thing we need everybody to realize again, and if we're repeating things, it's on purpose. It's not because we just don't have anything better to talk about. It's because we really want to hit you guys with this, because we want you to leave here feeling motivated and empowered. So collectively, the company that we work for has helped over 23,000 people overcome emetophobia. And when we say overcome, we mean it doesn't bother them. Okay, so it's not that we help them live more comfortably with it or manage their symptoms a little bit better. They overcome it to the point where it doesn't bother them. Like Lauren was just on a ferry in Puerto Rico recently, and the ferry was moving all around. In the past, that would have been a horrible time to be an emetophobic person. Whereas now she was able to enjoy the scenery, enjoy the experience. So she was able to overcome it. People can overcome it. We have a very interesting podcast that you can watch with Bella Ramsey from Game of Thrones and The Last of Us and The Worst Witch, where she talks about it because she overcame it with us and she was very public about it. A lot of people find that inspiring because it's a person that a lot of people know, and she's just a regular person who just happened to have this phobia just like the rest of us, and she overcame it. And then the other thing too, I think I'll just end with this, and then we'll move on. Is that I mentioned before, nobody's too complex. Nobody's had it for too long. We've had people from 8 years old to 80 years old overcome this, or 75. The lady who overcame it with us, she had it for 75 years, and she overcame it in 8 weeks. Um, we've helped people that have had horrible things happen to them, kidnap, torture, rape, PTSD issues with war, like the worst things that you can imagine happening. And they were able to overcome things and start thriving. So there's no, yeah, but my story is this, or I'm beyond help. Everybody's story is important, but it will only limit you if you let it limit you. There is a life past that's the horrible stuff that happened, and you can absolutely get thriving. You can absolutely overcome emetophobia. I'm gonna stop talking. That is enough for me.
Yeah,
Lauren, where would you like to take us?
no, you made a lot of great points. And I kind of wanted to start out, by piggybacking on what you were saying, but by validating the severity and the debilitating nature of the symptoms that are created from emetophobia and or generalized panic disorder, anxiety. The symptoms that are created are absolutely 100% real and hard and suffering. But the whole point of this live is to just explain that you don't have to go through that. There is a way out. You can stop it. And that is really what we want to get across. There's a lot of false beliefs and thinking out there right now on the support groups and um, you know, a lot of the TikToks and things that I have watched is just a lot of
Yeah,
misinformation when it comes to this. And there's a lot of guilt and shame associated. And I want to just touch on that because even in some of the comments that I've seen, people are making fun of this. They're invalidating it. So we just want to start off by saying we are not saying that your story is not important.
yeah,
That the things that happen to you are not significant. Of course they are. It's your story. But like Matt said, you can absolutely move beyond. You can learn to love your life. So we just want to inspire you and start off with something that's positive and um, move on from there. So, and we want to have a little bit of fun in the process tonight as well. So, some funny stories and things like that, because you really need to have some humor when you're talking about something like this. It feels so big and
yeah.
scary. See so many people, and I've lived it. I completely understand. So,
And one other thing to add to that, so before we forget, is that if nobody gave you a compliment today, you can take this one because to have a metaphobia, you have to have sort of like a superhuman brain. Your
yeah,
brain is working at such a capacity to always be on the lookout for threats. You're so hyper vigilant. It's always looking for threats. It's always trying to keep you safe. Um, so if you have metaphobia, you have more than likely a higher IQ than other people. So it takes a smarter person to have it, which is probably why I never had it. But
it's a lot of obsessive compulsive thinking, things like that.
yeah,
Like you said, it's 24/7 hyper vigilant thinking style. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of managing, a lot of organizing.
yeah,
You see a lot of planning ahead, a lot of detail orientated thoughts, and
yeah, yeah,
because they're always afraid of the worst case scenario. They're always afraid of what could happen. So they're wanting the high desire for control is trying to control all those events ahead
yeah.
of time. Because what if, what if, what if? A lot of anticipatory anxiety.
And that's why they're so successful in all other areas of life. That's
Yeah, that's true.
the common theme between all of them. They all say my life is amazing, except this. Their life is amazing because they made it amazing. They use that crazy brain power for all these things. Their high desire for control, figuring things out, making things happen, and they're trying to fix this one thing that
Yeah.
they feel like they can't fix.
Yeah, that's a really tough place to be in when you're like, if I could just get this out of my life, I could do this, this, and this. I would be so happy. I would have so much freedom. And it's just, it's that leap from feeling so powerless and hopeless to knowing that there is a cure, there is a way out. And we want to just reiterate that hope for you.
Yeah, and the fact that this is so predictable. Everybody, what are the chances that everybody who happens to come to us is all these
Mhm.
things? They're successful in all areas of life. They have a very high desire for control. If something's predictable, you know how to overcome it. It's not a big, crazy, mysterious thing. Can you tell us about, because I don't want to forget about this. So we said it's not about being sick, it's not about throwing up. What is the belief that is causing this entire thing?
That's such a hard concept for people to wrap their head around when they're in the middle of suffering. They don't want to hear that. And it's such a tough thing to accept. And I would say you don't even have to accept it. You just have to follow the process of overcoming it, and then you'll see at the end. Um, what are the limiting beliefs behind it?
What is the one belief that they have that creates this phobia?
The one major thing besides I can't control my thoughts around this subject is it would be worse than death. It would be absolutely, I can't even imagine a fate worse than this. I would rather die. And that is a very debilitating thing because we all have to eat every
Yeah,
day. Imagine if eating meant a potential certain death that day. And it's the unpredictability of this thing that you can't control that makes it so terrifying. It's the one thing in life that you just don't know. It's an invisible threat.
yeah,
It could come from a contagion. It could come from something you ate. So and it's inside of you.
yeah.
So
And if they believed that they could cope with it, they wouldn't have emetophobia.
yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's often the last 10%, 5 to 10% of people's, as Leanne puts it, holy grail of overcoming emetophobia. They just have to reduce that thought. And this also goes into preventing the panic attack in the
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
place.
So
Um,
that's why I wanted to bring this up because people need to understand this. The only reason you have it is because you have one single belief, and I just posted about this the other day, one single belief that you cannot cope with being sick.
mhm.
If you, and it's not as I'm not saying it's all, just change the belief. I know it's not that. But by doing all the other things that help you do that, that's what this is. Once you form the belief that, yeah, it'd still be gross and I wouldn't like it, but I could live with that. I could cope, I guess.
Yeah.
That's it. That's when the phobia is gone.
Uh, I've utilized that thought so many times when I was on the precipice of about to have a panic attack. It's that one thought that you're about to go into it and you're like, wait a minute, it would be okay. Wait a minute,
Yeah,
it would be gross, but I would survive. I would live to see another day. It's that moment that
yeah,
makes all the difference in the world between spiraling out of control into a terrible hours and hours and hours, like Amelia said, just up late, all throughout the night. You're pacing, you're pinching yourself, you're putting cold rags on, you're chewing all the gum. Yeah, I mean, I would buy gum like in bulk. Oh my goodness, the mints, the everything that people try to mitigate. They're just trying to cope with it. They're just trying to make it not so bad.
they're trying
Um,
to take back control.
yes,
That's
yes.
So, and that's like a lot of what we're talking about tonight, guys, is just we're trying to dumb this down because it feels like it's this big, crazy external thing that's just latched onto you and you can't get rid of it. But
Mhm.
we're trying to show you that it's just comes down to a belief that you can't cope with feeling out of control. So, all the things that Lauren just mentioned, when you're pinching yourself and you're putting a cold rag on you, or you are chewing gum or ginger or whatever it may be, that is just your attempt to regain control because you're doing something, it feels a little bit better. It all comes down to
Right.
control. It's not throwing up. You cannot, you don't have the belief that you can cope with being out of control.
Right.
It,
And it's interesting what it underlies that, how impactful raising your self-esteem is. I remember I could not see the connection in the beginning when I opened up the manual. I was like, self-esteem, what does that have to do with, I just don't want to throw up, okay? Like, I just, like, tell me I'm not going to be
yeah,
sick. And
yeah,
it's like, you have no idea how important yourself, raising your self-esteem. And I wanted to talk also tonight, we didn't really talk about this before, but your space, your sense of power and control over your experience, and your, that is why your desire for control is out of control and so, you know, hyper vigilant and on
yeah,
high alert, is because you don't believe that you have control over the experiences that you have in life. And it's not just throwing up, it's not just that,
yeah.
it extends to so many other areas of your life.
And I'm scared because I don't know if I have control. Yeah. So you you kind of mentioned this before because we do want to talk about how to stop the panic attack, but we also want you to come away from this really thinking, wow, I can't believe what those guys were just saying because now it all makes sense. And I hear this on a daily basis. And when things start, half of overcoming this is just understanding it. And the unfortunate truth is that most therapists don't really fully understand it. They want to help you live with it a little bit better. Doctors pretty much never understand it. They won't even know what emetophobia is if you told them you have it. So we want you guys to come away from this being like, oh my God, everything makes sense now. So the
Uh,
first, would you say that the first step is the is just reminding themselves, all right, this isn't happening to me. It feels like it is. It's not happening to me. It's something that I've unfortunately created because of my belief in my inability to cope in my unhelpful ways of thinking.
yes,
It's a
because
mouthful, but
yes, and because that is, awareness is the first thing that you need. Education, understanding yourself and how you think, how you behave, you know, your responses, your reactions to things is the first step in empowering yourself on your journey to recovery. Absolutely.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I wanted to just really quick, Amelia, just think about the fact that you've been torturing yourself. You've been torturing yourself day in and day out for 6 years, and you haven't, this thing has not happened. You've been living with anticipatory anxiety every single day, and you've effectively wasted all of that time, and nothing even ever happened. So the way that I think about that now that I'm over it, is like, I'm not going to give my power away. I'm not going to give my day away. I'm not going to give my nights away. I want to sleep tonight. And if if I get sick, I'll cope with it. And that's exactly where we want you to be, so that you're not wasting all that time.
yeah. Okay, so what comes next? Because, and all right, let me back up for a second. It's not just going to happen like this again. It's not, we're not saying, all right, so step one, yeah, all right, change my belief, got it. It doesn't work like that. This is a gradual thing. You're in the habit, and what I tell my clients is that we're done using the word emetophobia because it's way too medicalized. You're just in the habit of
Right.
thinking catastrophically about this. That's all that this is. It's just a habit that you have been building up for years and years and years and years and years and years. So, like any new habit, it's going to take work. But the first step is to realize it's not happening to me. I'm creating it, which is good because it means I can uncreate it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a belief. The only reason I'm keeping it alive is because I believe that I cannot cope with being sick. Once I am able to change that belief to, yeah, I'd still rather not, it would be gross, but I could cope, the
Right.
phobia is gone. So
Yeah.
the first step is you just need to realize it's not happening to you and it's just because of your belief. That's so
Right.
massively important. If you realize that, if I was able to somehow do this and you just change your belief, emetophobia would be gone. You'd be over it. Unfortunately, that's impossible, but that's how it works.
Right.
Um,
I would say the next step is, and the most important thing, other than what we just talked about, is that if you're managing your thinking styles in a helpful, healthy way every single day, you're not even going to get to that red zone. This is exactly what happened
yeah,
to
yeah,
me. I just realized one day, hey, I'm not having panic attacks anymore. Because if you're managing your thoughts on a daily basis, you're never going to get above like a 7 or 8 in on a scale of 1 to 10 with your stress level.
yep,
And you don't even have like that door even open up in your mind that you're going to go down that way. So that
yeah,
is so incredibly important that you learn how to have strong, powerful, helpful thinking
yep,
styles. And that comes with the education as well.
yep,
So what is hypervigilant thinking style? What is black and white thinking style look like? How do I know I'm doing it? So one of the things you can listen for is your language in in your own mind and what you're saying out loud as well. That's how you can start catching it. And that's how you can start challenging those. And when you challenge those, you're going to be immediately empowered.
yeah. So
And
that's probably the second step, I would say, right?
yeah.
Challenging it. You don't have to believe your thoughts. A thought is just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Not,
necessarily true or
not
not.
right.
It's just a thought, and you can challenge it, you can change it, you can get rid of it.
Yeah,
Again,
yes.
it's a little harder than that. It takes more work than just that. I'm not downplaying, emetophobia and saying, "Oh, come on, guys, just challenge your thoughts." We get that it's hard, but that's what it is. It's just doing that for a long enough time where your instinctual first thought is,
Right.
"Oh, my stomach's a little, whatever. I'll be all right.
Yes.
I'll be okay." You
Yes,
know?
and you can get there. You can. It feels impossible right now. I remember if somebody would have said that to me, I would have been like, "No way, no way. You
Of
don't understand."
course.
And now it's so nice to be able to do that, just like Mary's testimonial.
Yeah.
You're like, "Nah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's
It's
just
fine."
it's just a habit. You're just in the habit of thinking about this in a catastrophic way
Mhm.
and telling yourself every day, I could not cope with this.
Right.
That's all this is. And I'm going to keep saying it. And if someone tells me to shut up, I'm going to say it again because that's how important this is.
But imagine if you said even once a day. Imagine if you just said 10 times a day, I couldn't cope with XYZ. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's just something that you feel like is anxiety provoking and you started telling yourself over and over, I couldn't, if that happened, oh, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I would handle that. Gee, like this would happen, or what if that happened?
Yeah.
You're, you're just, you're creating that for yourself. And we're going to believe whatever we keep thinking about.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what's important to talk about too is that a lot of people, when they talk to us, their first question is this exposure therapy? And the answer is no, because exposure therapy doesn't work with this phobia. Um, Before I move on from that, if we haven't beaten it into your head already, the reason it doesn't work is because it's not about throwing up. So if I show you a bunch of pictures, I'm your therapist, I show you a bunch of pictures and videos of people throwing up, it's going to make you feel worse
yeah,
because you still have all those unhelpful ways of thinking catastrophically, things like that. And it's not addressing that you don't believe you can cope with being out of control. So, no, you do not need exposure therapy. It'll probably make you worse. But then also, you do not have to drop all your safety seeking behaviors to overcome emetophobia. That happens on
yeah,
its own. Once you start to build up the belief that you can tolerate being out of control in other areas that have nothing to do with emetophobia, you'll build up the belief you can tolerate being out of control, and that's when you'll slowly start to realize, well, I haven't washed my hands that many times today, or I haven't eaten that many ginger chews today, or whatever it may be. So it's not a hard, hey, to get over this, you got to look at it, you got to see videos of it, we're going to spin you around and make you dizzy. You can't have your mints. It has nothing to do with that. It's fun. You can do this in a fun way.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point about exposing yourself in other areas of your life to build up your secondary coping skills, like about just tolerating things and just process things throughout the day that you're doing that are doing that. Like
Yeah.
I mentioned it before, but even riding in the passenger seat of a car,
Yep.
especially on like a scary road, is a big
Yes.
accomplishment. That's huge. Think about all the other ways that you are strong. Think about all the other things that you've accomplished, even if it's running a marathon or
Yeah.
exposing yourself to really cold weather or just being uncomfortable in unpleasant situations, dealing with something that's difficult, or maybe it's like a loss of a pet or things like that,
Yeah.
and how well you process that, and just you're going to be able to apply that skill set to overcoming emetophobia as well. That's
And
so important.
and the cool thing about it too, in what you just said, my client just did. I told her to pay for an Uber and just have him drive, even if it's like a short drive, but she was able to have her boyfriend do it. Um, it doesn't have to. You don't have to do anything that is going to that put yourself in a situation where you feel crazy amounts of panic or stress or anything like that. If you wanted to, because that's a big one. That and again, it just comes down to not being in control. That's why you don't want to be a passenger in a car.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to start with a 30-second ride around the block with your husband or whatever it may be, and then the next day do 35 seconds or 40, whatever, you're starting to build the belief that you can tolerate not being in control. If you do these little things like that in different areas of your life, again, that have nothing to do with the metaphobia, you build up the belief you can tolerate not being in control. That's how you overcome it.
Yeah,
That's it.
you just keep, and then you process it well. You talk to yourself in a really calm, strong manner, like, hey, good job. Like this person in the comments, I can't see your name. That's awesome. Any small step, any win is huge.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Don't tell yourself it doesn't make a difference. It absolutely does. Every single thing you do, every step that you take in the right direction is powerful and
Yeah.
important.
And it's like, I love this example. It's like if you took a penny and doubled it every single day for a month, you'd have over $5 million at the end of the month. It
Wow.
sounds ridiculous. Do the math, ask ChatGPT. It comes out to like 5.3 something
That's
million dollars,
amazing.
I think. It's
Wow.
just you're compounding your small wins, your small habits. I tolerated being out of control for 30 seconds, then tomorrow 35 seconds, whatever the good thing is that it's not going to take, you're not going to have to do it to the point where, all right, now I have to go a cross country trip being a passenger. You do it a few times, that's going to be enough to flip the switch in your head where you're like, okay, I can tolerate this. And that's it. It's if you do it right, it'll only take a couple of times. That's it.
That is such, Amelia's example is fantastic for emetophobes. That is
Oh,
fantastic.
good.
Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that,
yeah,
because it's similar to what Matt was just saying, except it's very particular for a emetophobe. They, at one point I wasn't eating after 2 p.m. That's how controlling I was. And what she's saying is she's expanding her meals. Even if you add a little bit more food,
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit more food, experience that feeling of feeling full and tolerating it. Say, I got this. That's okay. And then every time that you're not sick, you're challenging your thoughts. You're saying, hey, I didn't throw up just because I felt bloated or full and I ate a full meal at dinner time. That's fantastic. Just start processing that in a really powerful way. Talk to yourself,
Yeah,
congratulate yourself,
yeah, yeah,
pat yourself on the back.
totally,
That's awesome. Yeah,
totally.
it's a big win for emetophobes. I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And before you know it, you're eating like full meals late at night and you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing this. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm trying to see
Oh,
what else we should touch on here.
you know what? We didn't talk about this prior, but I just thought of it when you were talking. We talk a lot about marbles, but marbles in an emetophobe type of way would be, so we talk about having a bowl of marbles is like your brain, and there's white ones and there's black ones. The strong, powerful, calming, reassuring, empowering ones are the white ones, and then the negative, disempowering. And in this case, it would be very specific to the thoughts that an emetophobe has. So you want to think about your mind as a bowl of white and black well, you want to think of it as an empty bowl, and throughout the day, you have thousands and thousands of thoughts. And the impact that a
Yeah,
couple of black marbles can make on your entire lens, on your entire day, is so incredibly powerful. And this is a way that you can, an exercise that you can help yourself when it comes to panic attacks. Because if your bowl at the end of the day is almost all whites, you're not going to be having these thoughts. You're not going to be engaging in severe panic attacks. Did you want to touch on the marbles? Because
Well, what I'm thinking, it's such a good exercise. If you actually bought, and we have our clients do this, if you bought white and black marbles, the reason that this is such a strong exercise is because when it's in your hand, the tangible, actual marble. If you're having a catastrophic thought, oh my god, I can't go to that concert. They're gonna be drunk people. What if they throw up?
mm-hmm.
I'm that drunk person, but I don't throw up at concerts. Um, then in that moment, when you're about to put that negative marble in the bowl, you have a second to change that to a different marble. You can be like, I can, I can do that. I know I can do it. Can I do that? Can even if you really don't believe that you can, you still have a moment to be like, where's the proof?
Right.
The tangible proof, not my opinion, but where's the proof that everybody else that I know would say, yes, you cannot cope with going to a concert. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist. So it gives you the chance to challenge that thought before you physically put it, into the bowl. And that's what a lot of this is. It's just habits. It's just building, starting to think, starting to challenge your thoughts, and not just letting the catastrophic thoughts spiral and take you in the wrong direction. Because that's what happens.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, and I forgot to mention it, when you're in this and when you're in the heat of the moment, you tend to believe your feelings,
Yeah,
and they are not facts. You can let them come and go and wash over you. They are, or you can challenge them. They are not, they feel real. They feel very real, especially to when you're going through a severe panic attack. But those challenging yourself, you don't even have to have someone else challenge you. Learn to challenge yourself in a way that feels comfortable for you, in a way, in the steps and in the timing and in your own journey that feels comfortable for you. And
yeah,
I love what you said about the tangible reality of the marbles. That's
yeah,
it's and that's important with all your thoughts, not just emetophobic thoughts. If you're beating yourself up throughout the day, oh, I'm so fat, I don't want to look in the mirror, or or oh, I'm so stupid. Those thoughts actually help keep emetophobia alive. So those are important as well to challenge and to fix. And like you just said, you don't even have to believe it in the moment, because what we start training ourselves to believe is what becomes reality. So even if it feels awkward or uncomfortable to be like, no, I'm beautiful, just do it. Just take that marble out, and you're going to feel good when you fill up your bowl with white
yeah.
marbles.
Of course, I like that example. Um, One thing I think that's important to mention is that to have emetophobia, you have to think in a all or nothing way. Um, and the reality is that
Yeah.
life is on a spectrum. Emetophobia is on a spectrum. You can be somewhere in the middle. You don't have to. Right now, you hate it, right? Hate it with more than anything in the world. The goal is not to get to loving it because no sane person in this world loves it. The goal, which is very achievable, just somewhere in the middle, is like I've said before. I'd rather not have it happen. It's gross. It's uncomfortable. But I know I would deal with it. I know I'll get through it. When you can, when you think that and you believe it, you're over your phobia. That's it. So it's not this crazy unattainable goal where right now you're all the way on this end of the spectrum, hating it, and you're like, how the heck? I have to go all the way to that side where I'm going to love it? No. You just need to build up the belief you can cope. You can
Yeah.
cope. That's it. And you're over it.
Yeah, there's this unrealistic expectation, I think, and that comes also from the perfectionist thinking
Yeah.
styles that metaphobes also have, where they're like beating themselves up if they are not 100% perfect all the time. I still get thoughts. I still have thoughts that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to deal
Yep.
with, and but I feel powerful about them and I'm able to dismiss them so much faster. It's just a complete life changer. But you know, and like you probably still get some random anxiety provoking thoughts that you have to
Yeah,
deal with.
every
Life,
single day.
yeah,
Every single day. Life
life
is
is
not
hard. Yeah.
like thriving and overcoming whatever it is that you are dealing with. The other side is not just life is 100% perfect. You never get mad. You never have a panic attack. Life is, if I start to have a panic attack, which I can't remember the last time I did, but if I did, it would last 2 seconds because I'd be like, it's fine. You're not dying. You can handle this.
Yeah.
And once you believe, because I believe, I in my heart believe I could handle it, that belief stops your brain in that second,
Yes.
and your brain goes, "Oh yeah, all
Oh
right,
yeah.
yeah, this actually isn't a threat. Okay, yeah, we're good. Let's continue on," and it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Your body responds to your thoughts. So it's managing those thoughts. Your body's going to respond so quickly, like super quickly. If you even have an inkling of a thought, ugh, your body can respond to that so quickly. But that the 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 reaction is your responsibility. It's not the initial threat because
Yeah,
we all face things. We all face things that are external, things that suck,
yeah,
honestly, things that are difficult. But it's our reaction to them that is so important. And that can, so that initial thing can happen. And by the time your amygdala talks to your neocortex, it can be thousands of
yeah,
like a millisecond. But it's our response that's important. And you can have the skills, you can have the empowerment
yeah,
to deal with it and to look at it the way that we're saying.
yeah,
You can get there. And we're proof of that. So, I mean, I 100% understand what it is like.
yeah.
It, it can be so severe and debilitating. And a lot of people go on to develop agoraphobia or things
Oh
like
yeah,
Amelia is talking about, these restrictions, these limitations. And you just, you don't have to live with that. You have a
yeah,
choice. Anybody and anybody can get over it
yeah.
and make it completely beyond manageable. So, did you want to talk about, let's see, if you do have a blip, if you, let's say you're going through your training or you're working on recovery, um, you know, it is effectively managing your thinking from day to day. But if you do get to a point where you're in the red or you're going into a blip, whether it's anything, anything that is negative, whether it's depression or anxiety or anything like that, you do have a bunch of tools at your disposal. And one of them is visualization. There's a client who actually overcame emetophobia 100% just using that tool. So we can give you a range of tools that you can use in the moment. And we know that even if you just use one of them, it can be successful. That's how powerful they are. So,
Yeah, and then once you use it once and you know that you have a tool, you
mhm.
probably won't ever have to use it again because now you feel you have the belief that you don't need to be scared anymore because you can stop this. Because you have that belief you're not going to be scared anymore.
Right.
Um,
Just having a coping skill is a coping skill.
yeah, yeah,
And I guess we kind of went over ineffecting coping strategies already.
yes,
Seeking external reassurance. Uh, we went over this in our last live, but it is important to touch on when it comes to severe panic attacks because it will just proliferate more panic attacks. If the minute that you, here's a way you can challenge yourself. The minute that you start feeling like, oh, I might go into a panic attack, I need to call my dad, I need to go on a support group and ask 1,000 questions, just tolerate it. This is one of the first steps that you can do. You can just deal with it. You can tolerate it. And then after an hour or however long goes by, look at it. Look at it. What happened? Did you die? Were you sick? No, you were fine. You just probably had some bloating or thought that something was out of date that wasn't out of date. And you're fine. Um, I can't.
So
Go ahead.
there's, I don't want you to lose track of what you're saying, but there's such an important part to that. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that's such a powerful thing that if you guys just do that and you keep doing it and you do it well,
Mm-hmm.
you'll make a big dent in your emetophobia recovery. So when you do tolerate it during and I'll say after, instead of thinking on it, oh my god, that was the worst thing. I hated that. Oh my god, it was awful. It was just as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then you're thinking about it all night, all day. That's not going to be helpful. But if you just take a step back, once you calm yourself down and think, okay, I was able to tolerate it. Yeah, it was still bad, but it wasn't that horrible. Go me. That's the first step towards building my new habit. I've never just tolerated it. And if you really just process that well and powerfully, and what we mean by that is patting yourself on the back, realizing it wasn't the worst thing in the world,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be easier to tolerate next time,
Oh
and
yeah.
next time, and next time. And before you believe it, no pun intended, your belief is going to start to change that you can
Mm-hmm.
tolerate being out of control, but you have to do it that way. You can't do it. That was the worst thing. That was just as bad as I thought it was going to be. Lauren made it seem like it was going to be easy. It was so horrible. Because that's not going to be helpful. And you won't do
Right.
it again because it's going to be an awful experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You decide. And this goes back to the first time that you created the belief. This goes all the way back to before you started maintaining it, making it huge and blowing air into it. Is that first time. We might not even remember it.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking back, I was like, I wonder if I saw my dad get sick over and over with his chemotherapy when I was a toddler. I don't really know how, but some point the environment was right to with my thinking styles, which probably inherited from usually it's usually it's a mother,
Yep.
um, especially when it comes to social anxiety and catastrophic thinking style. Um, the environment had to be right. It's almost like a preset on your hardware in
Yes.
order
Yes. Yes.
to create it in the first place. And then so from then on, we just maintained it and made it huge. But if we could so what we're talking about is how we process the event. So if you get sick again, what you want to do is process it differently than you did the original time when you created the
Mm-hmm.
phobia. And I think that's really important, because hey, you might get pregnant, you might get sick. It's stomach bug season, and it might happen. And we have
Yep.
to know what to do when and if it does. So
That could probably just get somebody over that one thing.
yes.
If it does happen to them, I mean, it would be tough. It's doable, but if they did, hopefully after watching this and learning something, if they did process it in a way where, okay, in the past we would have thought that was the craziest, worst thing in the world, but I got through it. It wasn't as bad as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, what? And you processed it like that, like it would probably just go away.
Yeah, you can make a fear or an anxiety out of anything in the world. You could
Yeah,
start being afraid of this pen. If you
yeah,
thought about it the right way or the wrong
yeah,
way, you could create a phobia right now.
yep,
That's how powerful our thinking styles
yeah.
are and how we process events. It's kind of like the difference between how somebody processes something they don't like, and somebody might be like, this is the most amazing day of my life. I love Disney World. Whereas I probably would be like, nah, that's not for me.
Oh, all right. That's such a good example. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Such a good example. This is the same exact thing as, let's say somebody tells a racist joke. Let's say I tell a racist joke, and then Lauren's the one who thinks it's awful. I wouldn't be telling racist jokes, by the way. Let's say that I am, for the purposes of this exercise, Lauren is the one who thinks it's awful, and one of my jackass friends is laughing like crazy. The joke is just a joke. It's just a bunch of words.
Mm.
The reason that Lauren is feeling something different and thinking something different than my friend. It's just the way that they're processing that information, the lenses that they're wearing, whether they think catastrophically or their habits, how they were brought up, if they were brought up in a household that condones racism, whatever it may be. They're just a bunch of words, and it's your way of filtering the experience that is really making the experience. So same exact thing with the whole throwing up. Like we said before, one person blows it out of proportion because of the way that they think, which it's not their fault. They copied it from usually mom. If one blows it up out of proportion and they're brooding about it for weeks and it's the worst thing in the world, and then the other kid, it's fine, it's kind of gross, moving on. It's not the experience, it's just how they processed
Mhm.
it. That's what we mean by this is it's not happening to you. You created it. Don't beat yourself up.
Right.
Think about it in a helpful way. I created it, which means I can uncreate it. It's not a scary thing lurking out there trying to get me that I can't control. Feels like that, but that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. That really is the first step. And it should feel really good to know that. Even if you don't fully understand it right now, just knowing that and knowing that there's people
Yeah,
who've overcome it by understanding that it gives you hope. It really does give you hope. And just for me, just knowing there were people who overcame it at all was like a light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, really? It's possible? And then when you have somebody who can just explain it to you in such a simple, easy way, where you're talking about deconstructing a building that you put together brick by brick
mm,
by brick by brick over years and years and years, and then you just have to do this. That's all it is.
yeah,
That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It feels so good to know
It's
that.
just that
It
people don't know how to do it yet. They have the ability. They already have
yes.
the ability. They just
Yes.
don't know where it is in them or how to use it or how to
Mhm.
go about it. That's it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yep. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
So let's see. It it I don't know. Okay, we touched on that kind of already. I was gonna say like, how do you know you're over it? But um, the I just scribbled down here. The ratio of your belief of how well you can cope with something is directly related to how powerful you feel about it. I'm going to give a stupid example. I was thinking, like, so before this live, I was thinking, oh, I have this huge zit on my face. And I started to create a tiny bit of anxiety about it, right? It's there. But here's the thing I knew. I said, oh, I have foundation. I have a tool in my toolkit to mitigate this
Yeah.
thing. And as stupid as it sounds, I felt powerful about it again. I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'll cope with it. I have a tool.
Yep.
It's the same way of thinking about emetophobia. It's like when you realize that you have a tool to deal with the thing, you feel powerful again in relationship to that thing. Anytime we start creating anxiety, I wanted to talk about anxiety in general because it we start creating it when we start having these thoughts about not being able to deal with something or it being too big or too scary. Um,
Yep.
it's
And
the relationship that we feel to that thing. Go ahead.
yeah, I just think it's important for people to catch on your choice of words there. She's saying creating anxiety because that is what we do. It's
Mm-hmm.
not happening to you. It's just not. Otherwise, a whole another 96% of the population would have emetophobia instead of
Right,
4%. If
right.
it was happening to you, you know, you create the anxiety just by your unhelpful ways of thinking and your attitudes and your beliefs and all that stuff. Again, it's a good thing because you can learn to go the other way. You created it when you were young, you know, not on purpose. You can. Doesn't it only make sense that you can change it? You know, we're not set for life. There's a fancy thing called neuroplasticity that exists where our brains can change.
Yeah, it's just habits. It's a bad, you got yourself in a lot of different thinking habits that can be uncreated. You reminded me of something we were talking about earlier, is regarding all these techniques and coping mechanism things that we see online, as far as like preparing and packing mints and all these
Yeah,
other things. On that same topic, we just wanted to say, if these things worked, if all the things that everybody has been doing all these years actually worked, we wouldn't have any emetophobes anymore. All these millions of articles and
support
tips and
groups.
tricks and advice and people that mean really well. I've seen so many people that mean really well on social media trying to help, and they might sprinkle in a couple of helpful things here and there, like a positive inner voice. I've
Love
seen like,
yourself, stuff like that. Yeah.
hey, you're strong, you can do this, it's okay, you can. Some of that is like sprinkling in some good stuff, but most of it is really disempowering and unhelpful. And if it worked, the people wouldn't be following their page anymore. So something is not right about what they're saying. So what we are saying sounds, it could sound offensive or triggering or things like that, to use that language. And I know this because we're getting a lot of thumbs down on my YouTube videos. A lot of people don't want to hear this. It's hard to hear, but it's really important that the audience understands that there's people like me who can't even remember a time before I overcame a few years ago that I wasn't having panic attacks every single day pretty much of my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just emetophobia. It was like so many other things that I felt so powerless in. But if there's one person that can speak to this, it is somebody like me who has overcome this. um, I know exactly what it feels like. I know what it's like to have hours and hours and hours and hours of panic attacks and just
Yeah.
having my life completely limited. And this is why this is so important, why we're so blunt, why we get right to the point, because we don't want you to live with this. We don't want you to have job loss. We
Yeah.
don't want you to have relationship loss. We It really affects so many areas of your life, and it's not just, oh, I'm having a panic attack in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
No, it's it it affects, it ruins your life. It
Yeah.
ruins your life. And
And also the whole kid thing. If you want to have kids,
yes.
we don't want you to pass it on to your kids, not genetically, because that doesn't exist, but we don't want your kids to copy all your unhelpful ways of thinking and your unhelpful beliefs that's keeping your metaphobia alive, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how they'll end up with the metaphobia.
Right. Yes. That's
So
absolutely.
you nailed it. It's, if any of this sounds like, I don't know, if we're being too rough, you need to hear it. If you want to get better, you need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to
Yeah.
overcome it, I shouldn't even use the word better. If you want to overcome it, you need to hear it. You don't want to listen to the people in the support groups because, like Lauren said, they mean well. But it's the blind leading the blind. It really just is. At the end of the day, are we here to talk about, yeah, but that person's nice and it's nice that they did that, or do you want to overcome it? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like we said the last time, or I probably said the last time, if you do anything after today to help yourself, get out of those support groups. You have all the support that you need. You are the only person that you need. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Um,
really unhelpful because
because
we just
they're gonna make it
proliferate.
worse. It's just gonna get worse. You're gonna give attention to something that doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
more attention. It's not
Yeah.
happening to you. You created it. You can uncreate it.
And you mean
um,
that with a lot of empathy.
yeah, yes, I do. I can be too direct sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
we see every day. We see every day, every week, people overcoming this, and it's because we get right down to the point. We
Mm-hmm.
get the person's goal is to overcome emetophobia, and we'll ask them, "Hey, how hard do you want us to be on you?" Or not hard, but like how. Well, I guess you could say that, and everybody
Straightforward.
says, give me 10 out of 10 straightforward. I want to beat this thing,
Yeah.
and that's how you do it. All right, let's jump right in because we know how to get people over this thing. If you want to hear it, we'll tell you, and you'll get over it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem really harsh sometimes, and I admit that Again, I was quite resistant in the beginning, as my coach will tell you. But when you get to the other side, you see it so clearly. And like you said, it's the blind leading the blind. You don't know what you don't know. I've said that before. Um, and we're coming from a place of concern and passion
Yeah.
and a heart for people who are suffering with one of the worst things in the world. We want you to overcome it. We
Yeah.
want you to get better. We want you to love your life, embrace your life. It's don't waste another day. Don't
Yeah.
don't do what I did. I mean, man, I spent probably 20 years suffering. Nobody has to
That's
do.
why. That's why we always encourage you guys to watch the testimonials, listen to people's stories, because you're gonna hear people who were worse off than you. I'm not discrediting your story, but chances are, because there are so many of them, you're gonna be like, that person got over, they're way worse than me. That's
Yeah,
a crazy thing that they overcame. Wow, like
yeah,
so if anything, use that as your motivation rather than like the support groups. Like listen to the stories like Lauren's, other people that inspire you who have overcome this. If you are a teen boy, listen to the teen boys. If you're a mom and your kid has it, listen to the testimonials of a mom helping their kid. Because a lot of times people they think this is it. This is my life. That's just it. My life. This is just my life. And so when you're thinking that, that might be the perfect time to be like, I need a little bit of a pick me up. You know,
hmm
I don't know. We're
yeah,
way off topic, but I think these are all good things that we're talking about. Um, yeah, I don't know.
yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic homework assignment is to go to the page. It's specifically Emetophobia free, um, the website, and watch. Have yourself just sit down and watch like 3 testimonials. We watch social media all day, every day. We know
Yeah,
that because it's on the referrals that come through. It's like um, you can devote what 20 minutes to watching a couple of them. It is so inspiring. It just gives you that motivation and that hope to, hey, these people suffer just like me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They and and like you said, some of them were about to just jump out in front of a truck. What
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, how much worse can it get?
And now they're thriving, and they're over emetophobia.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Or my
that,
girlfriend's coach who would drink 33 shots of whiskey every day because she thought that it was killing the bacteria in her stomach that would make her throw up. And now she's thriving and she's a coach. Um,
yes,
yeah.
yeah, all because of a belief that all because of a belief her mom told her. Oh, if you drink alcohol, it'll kill the germs in your tummy. And by the way, my mom told me that too.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm glad I didn't turn to alcohol because I was afraid of throwing up.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. It kind of seems like you wouldn't even do that,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
guess you did.
it's an interesting story. And I used to joke around and say, oh, one of the perks of having emetophobia was that I would never become an alcoholic. But now I just wouldn't become an alcoholic because it's not helpful.
I was
But
talking to somebody the other day who said, I've never tried drugs, I've never drank. And again, a common theme here is that it comes down to control.
yeah, yeah,
When you're drunk or when you're on drugs, you're not fully in control. That's why you won't do those things. That's why you have emetophobia, because you have the belief that you cannot cope with being out of control. It just comes down to control and your belief about it. It's simple. It's not easy. We're not saying it's easy. Lauren's definitely not saying it's easy. I'm definitely not saying it's easy. But it's simple. It's not this crazy thing that we just don't understand. Everybody has it for the same reasons. They're maintaining it for the same reasons. They created it for the same reasons, and they get over it the same ways.
yeah. That's interesting because emetophobes tend to be very similar. They tend to be female. They tend to be thin. They tend to have like health
Oh yeah,
anxieties. They're obsessive about their body. They're obsessive about food. There's some overlap with you know, eating disorders, things like that. They tend to be people that do like dance or gymnastics,
Yeah.
and they tend to be attractive, which is interesting. Maybe they feel a lot more pressure from society. I'm not really sure what that is, but it's so predictable. Circling back to the beginning, but it's just something funny to think about. You know how it presents in in humanity, I guess. But do you want
Yeah.
to? I think the testimonials is a good way to wrap it up. Um, hey, if you haven't seen that page, if you haven't listened to our podcast, so inspiring. I turned on the one with the 10-year-old who overcame with the help
Yep.
of a parent, and I literally was crying yesterday listening to, well, not crying, like bawling, but it just
Yeah.
brought
Yeah.
some tears to my eyes. Amazing. A 10-year-old
Yeah.
can do it. You can do
Yeah.
it. Ah,
Yeah. 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 So this isn't like a lot of times I'll go to webinars and like networking events and stuff, and at the end they're like, "All right, thanks for joining us, and now we're going to try to sell you everything." This is not that. If you do just what, or do your best, because this is a lot, and I'm sure a lot of this is like, what? Wait, what? And like you still haven't even processed it yet. But if you do as many of the things as we mentioned, you will be. It'll make a massive difference. You will be going in the right direction towards overcoming emetophobia. So Lauren said, go to the website. I think it's emetophobia.co.uk and just watch testimonials, whichever ones you find the most interesting. Which we have them grouped by, you know, situation, like a teen or a mom or whatever it may be. Watch testimonials to empower yourself. Get out of those support groups. They're not going to help you. Um, Remind yourself that this is not something happening to you. You created it. You can uncreate it. You just
yeah.
you just need to work at it, and you have to do it and do it and do it and do it until it becomes a new habit.
Mm.
Telling yourself that I can cope, I can do this, challenging your thoughts. You don't have to believe all your thoughts, tolerating, getting a little bit better every day. Try to do as many of these things as you can,
Right.
and you you're setting yourself up for success. That's like, oh, and the podcast. Listen to the Emetophobia free podcast. I tell clients, sort Spotify by the oldest first. Listen to the
Yes.
oldest ones first, and, and go from there. And really digest what is being said. Don't just listen to it like when you're kind of half paying attention. Really listen to it, because you're gonna the one of those episodes will have more aha moments in it than Lauren and
Hmm.
I could present in probably 5 of these.
Yeah. Yeah, they're brilliant. I've listened to some of them 4 times over, and I'm a coach.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they're just
yeah,
encouraging. Thrive to thrive, to live a thriving life takes effort. It is a doing thing. And we have to constantly, in order to keep helpful beliefs, we have to pour those beliefs and install them into us all the time. We have to be around helpful people, thrivey people. We have to be around thrivey things. We have to listen to
yeah,
thrivey things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Those are all
yeah,
really good
things
points.
that are empowering and good, because the world's external enough. I mean, the influences that are out there, the people even in our own homes and environments can be unhelpful. So we have to take that responsibility. Don't make an excuse. Don't be like, well, I don't have time. Hey, if you have 15 minutes on a car ride, put it on.
Yeah,
Listen to it. Do this for
yeah,
yourself. You know?
yeah. It works. You have to put the work in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fun.
Yeah.
It feels good when you start doing this stuff, and you feel that first little twinge of like, wait, can I do I feel a little bit better? Can I actually tolerate this? You're gonna be like obsessed with that and be like, oh my god, like I think I can do this, and it's just gonna feel amazing, because you probably have not felt that in like years. You just feel like you've been, attacked by a phobia. But anyway, if if anybody has a question, you can DM us. We're happy to help. We're doing this because we want to do this. Corporate doesn't make us do this. They probably don't even know that we're doing it. We're doing it because we want to be helpful. It's 9:30 here at night for both Lauren and I. We could have been doing anything, but we're here because we want to help you guys. So if you have a question, DM us.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to help you.
Yes, and please follow our accounts. We're going to be putting out tons of helpful
Yeah,
information. So we're excited. And if you guys have questions for lives or for content, we are happy to take them. You're
yeah,
welcome.
yeah. We want to be talking about things that you guys care about. We don't want to
Mhm.
just talk to talk because that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Lauren, um, and thank you everybody out there. And we'll see you next time then.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys. I hope
Bye, guys.